What's up, guys? Maidenslave here, and today we talk Sad Wings of Destiny, Judas Priest's sophomore album, and man oh man did they step it up. So as I said in the Rock and Roller review, they had a lot of growing pains on their first album. A lot of the songs that you heard on that first album sounded nothing like a lot of the stuff that you would hear for the rest of their career. Not, the really, really good, fucking good heavy metal shit that would come out of Judas Priest. So another thing that I mentioned in that review is they were already writing some other songs that would be on their next album, Sad Wings of Destiny. Songs like Dreamer, Deceiver, and a few others. Just a couple years later, Judas Priest put out another album, and believe it or not, financially they weren't doing too well, so they were kind of counting on this album to, save them. To get them to get a lot more respect and a lot more money for their next few albums that they would do. And it worked. And you can kind of tell that they were putting this album together as if maybe it could be their last, because from top to bottom this album is a complete masterpiece. The production is a lot better, although it still has a very kind of 1970s tone to it, especially now. But still, the guitars are a lot more distorted. They have a new drummer. He's a bit better. Everything is just everything on the album is better. The sound, the performance. Rob Halford finally actually starts singing like Rob Halford. Pretty much everything just kind of worked. First of all, the artwork is fucking amazing. It's one of my favorite pieces of artwork for any album. It's of that angel. It sets up this really, really cool atmosphere, this really, really cool vibe. I mean, it's very dark. It has a lot of energy backing it. It's a lot deeper than the first album. The first album seems a lot more poppy, literally, Coke. There you go. So, alright, let's just fucking jump straight into it. First song, Victim of Changes. I mean, there you go right there. That's a really good sign right there. I mean, that is an amazing song. Right off the bat, we get to hear what would be, I consider, probably the greatest twin lead attack to ever happen. And it really started on Sad Wings of Destiny for Judas Priest. Right away, you hear both of the guitars in stereo mix, just playing this amazing lick, and eventually it comes into a really, really heavy, kind of 70s sounding part. The song is very dynamic. It shows off Rob's voice. It has a cool slow part, and it is literally about being a victim of changes. And this is something that we can all relate to. This makes this song very timeless. Whenever I listen to it, especially when I'm going through changes or when things are happening that things are changing, it's very relatable. It's very timeless. No matter even though it was made in 1976, and it is a staple in their set list. A lot of Judas Priest fans fucking love that shit. Next song, The Ripper. I mean, there you go, right? This is an amazing song. Once again, showing off the twin lead attack of KK Downing and Glenn Tipton. I mean, this song is fucking fantastic. It is kind of this. It has the same atmosphere and energy as something like Iron Maiden's Killers. It's very similar. It's very heavy, but it has a lot of melodies running through it, and it has a very impressive vocal performance by Rob. Once again, very, very, very good song, and it also is another staple in Judas Priest's set list. So the next two songs are kind of connected, Dreamer, Deceiver, and just Deceiver. Dreamer, Deceiver is beautiful. For the first time, we really get to hear Judas Priest not, on the first album, they were kind of just like elementary, like playing around with soft, guitar licks. But on Dreamer, Deceiver, it really sounds very beautiful. It has meaning, it's deep. I really like the guitar lines. Rob Halford's voice, it's so dynamic, he can go really high, but at the same time he can do something very soft and beautiful. And Dreamer Deceiver is one of my favorite, slow metal songs of all time. It goes into Deceiver, which is a lot more upbeat, a lot heavier, once again returning to this kind of Judas Priest, going from less of a prog rock act to more of a heavy rock act, and eventually they will become metal. Next song on the album is called Prelude, and it quite literally is a prelude. And there's a few moments on this album that actually you know, you could still tell that Judas Priest were still growing, they were still developing, but on this album, these things actually fit. Now, although Prelude, which is, you know, it's a piano part with a little bit of bass, and it's really short, you know, even though when you first start listening to it, it sounds a little bit kind of out of place because it's a Judas Priest album, after a little while when it gets into it, it sounds really nice, and it goes into Tyrant really well, and Tyrant's another amazing Judas Priest song. I mean, this album, it sounds, at this point, like a best of. Tyrant is another staple in their live set. It's very upbeat, it's very heavy, it's one of the fucking best metal songs, period. Really, really great song. Next song, Genocide. This is another really, really great heavy song. A lot more upbeat, and it's an interesting song too. It just shows, like, every single song on this album just sounds different from every other song on the album, if you can see what I'm saying. And Genocide is interesting because it actually sets up like a dancing type feel, a dancing beat. And when it gets into it, even the way that Rob sings the vocals, it sounds like he's arranging like a fucking dance hall or something, and it's just, but it's metal though, and you get into it and it's exciting, and there's a lot of fucking energy. This album just, it has so much energy, but it has so much depth, and I rarely come across that. Usually an album is very, very strong in one aspect, you know, either it's very upbeat energy, or it's really deep and kind of emotional, but this album actually puts together both of them, and it does it really well. It executes it very, very, very good. Next song is called Epitaph, and this is another part of the album that actually sounds a little bit more reminiscent of what they were doing on Rock-a-Rolla, but even then it's better, and the way that it goes into the last song, Island of Domination, it really, really works. And Island of Domination is a very underrated song to me because it is so good. I mean, I understand, Judas Priest, they fucking have so many songs to choose from, but when people talk about Sad Wings, they talk about the big songs, but Island of Domination is a really, really, really good song. It's really heavy. It completely shows off Rob's amazing voice. Just a great way to end an amazing album. So, yeah, as I said in Rock-a-Rolla, they were growing, but they were, you know, just about to become the real Judas Priest that we all know. Sad Wings of Destiny, to me, is one of the greatest hard rock, heavy metal albums in history. It's one of the best albums that Judas Priest has put forward, and the funny thing about it is it's not that popular compared to a lot of their bigger, more commercial successes. I remember the first time I listened to it when I was a kid. I was used to Painkiller, which is great, you know, and other albums, you know, like that. They're big albums, Defenders of the Faith and whatnot. And when I heard Sad Wings, I actually felt something. It wasn't just like, oh, that's impressive heavy metal, you know, with Rob screaming. When I listened to Sad Wings, I felt something, and it really also opened the doors for me to a lot of other kinds of music. It's a really good gateway album to go from this heavy shit that, you know, I know a lot of you guys listen to, of the 80s, 90s, and now into the earlier 70s, into the 60s, because there's really, really great music in those decades. It's a great album. Sets up an amazing atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about it. It's one of my favorite albums, period. Definitely one of my favorite Priest albums. I can talk about it for hours. Yeah, so I'm going to give Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest a 10 out of 10. To me, this really is a perfect album from top to bottom. I can listen to it any time of the year, whenever. It's always good to me. I've always enjoyed it very much. So, later, guys. See you next time.